Welcome tonight, as the storm broke over the city, the only witness to the exchange that sealed their fate. The neon signs of the waterfront blurred into streaking pinks and blues against the rain-slicked pavement, reflecting the desperate chaos brewing inside the dilapidated warehouse on Pier 7. They weren't here for cargo. They were here for the silence, the kind of absolute hush that follows a truth too terrible to speak. The air smelled of wet concrete, sea salt, and the faint, metallic tang of inevitable betrayal, signaling that the game had just begun, and not everyone would see the morning. The year is 1895. New York City's Lower East Side wasn't yet the trendy, historic district we know today. It was a suffocating, churning crucible of immigrant hope and urban grime. Overcrowded tenements loomed, blocking out the sun, and the air was thick with the scent of coal smoke, brine, and desperation. Within this chaos, a subtle, revolutionary scent began to mingle with the rest. The intoxicating smell of baking dough, ripe tomato, and melting mozzarella. This was the scent of pizza, but to the vast majority of Americans, it was an entirely foreign, unidentifiable dish. Pizza was not an American food, nor was it even Italian food in the general sense. It was specifically Neapolitan. It was the food of the contadini, the peasants, and the working poor who were streaming into the United States, escaping crushing poverty in southern Italy and carrying little more than the clothes on their backs and the culinary memory of their homeland. The Neapolitan secret, street food of the poor inn, its birthplace of Naples. Pizza was never a fancy meal. It was the ultimate fast food, cheap, filling, and portable. Peddled by vendors who cooked them in wood-fired ovens and sold them in the street, they were often folded in two, a portafoglio or wallet, and eaten standing up. The basic recipe, involving flour, lard, salt, and the cheapest local tomatoes, was a study in economic necessity. When the huge waves of southern Italian immigrants arrived in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia between 1880 and 1920, they brought this street staple with them, not as a dish to be shared with Americans, but as a crucial, comforting link to the life they had left behind. The earliest American pizzerias weren't restaurants at all. They were glorified bakeries, often tucked into the back of grocery stores or small panettone bread shops in Little Italy. These shops primarily served the community, their customers being Italian-speaking laborers who needed a cheap, familiar lunch. Non-Italians rarely ventured into these deep ethnic enclaves, and if they did, the unfamiliar look and smell of the flatbread often deterred them. It was a closed culinary loop. Gennaro Lombardi, the myth and the oven. While many immigrants certainly baked pizza in their homes and small shops, the story of its commercialization in America is intrinsically tied to one name, Gennaro Lombardi. In 1897, Lombardi opened a small grocery store on Spring Street in Lower Manhattan. Recognizing the demand, he began selling freshly baked tomato pies wrapped in paper and tied with string for a mere 5 cents. Then in 1905 came the pivotal moment. Lombardi applied for and received one of the very first commercial licenses in New York to officially operate as a pizzeria. Lombardi's, as it came to be known, is widely credited as America's first true pizzeria. It was a game changer, but its early existence was far from glamorous. The shop wasn't seeking mainstream American clientele. It was serving the coal miners, factory workers, and dock laborers who needed sustenance. The ovens, often retrofitted from old bread ovens, used coal, the only readily available fuel, lending the early American crusts a unique, smoky char distinct from their Neapolitan wood-fired ancestors. The early years sold by the pound and the slice. The business model of early American pizza was radically different from today. They didn't sell whole pies to be shared by families. Pizza was sold by the weight or by the piece. A customer would ask for a specific amount, and the baker would cut a wedge off a large pre-baked pie. This was essential for the low-wage workers who could only afford a small fraction of $1 for lunch. This environment fostered a fierce loyalty among Italian Americans, but the dish remained invisible to the wider culture. While Italian spaghetti and meatballs were slowly being adapted for the American palate, pizza was seen as too simple, too peasant, and too pungent due to ingredients like anchovies and strong garlic to appeal to the Midwestern or Anglo-American diner. However, the foundation was being meticulously laid. Throughout the 1910s and 1920s, other pioneering pizzerias began to open, often founded by Lombardi's apprentices or relatives, spreading the style across the boroughs. Totonno's in Coney Island, John's of Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village. They all shared the same DNA, coal-fired ovens, simple ingredients, and a dedication to serving their immediate community. The pizza of this era was a quiet cultural statement. It was a declaration by a marginalized community that their food, their history, was here to stay. It was a secret, delicious handshake shared between immigrants, a silent source of strength in a harsh new world. The dish was poised, resting on the coal-fired hearths of the East Coast, waiting for the pivotal, seismic cultural event that would finally catapult it out of the tenements and onto the American national stage. That event, decades away, would be a world war. The thin, smoky slices sold on Spring Street in Manhattan was still a delicious secret in 1940 outside of New York, Boston, and New Haven. If an average American in Kansas or Kentucky heard the word pizza, they likely assumed it was a foreign dance or a type of fruit tart. The dish was tethered to the Italian-American community by a combination of unfamiliarity, the Great Depression's economic chokehold, and a lack of necessary infrastructure. The barrier was immense. Then history intervened with the raw, brutal necessity of war. The Italian campaign, A Taste of Liberation, in 1943, as the Allied forces launched their campaign to drive Nazi forces out of Italy, hundreds of thousands of young American GIs were deployed onto the peninsula. These soldiers, weary of the relentless boredom of K-rations and the endless cycle of combat, found themselves in a land where the culture was rich and the food was simple, fresh, and deeply satisfying. The experience was revelatory. As American troops fought their way up the Italian boot, from the beaches of Sicily to the streets of Naples, they were often greeted as liberators. The local civilians, with little to spare, frequently offered the GIs whatever food they had. This sharing often included the one dish that defined Neapolitan hospitality: pizza. For a soldier who had spent months enduring dehydrated eggs and canned meat, the simple, vibrant combination of crust, tomato and cheese was an exotic culinary revelation. They ate it in homes, in tiny local bakeries that stayed open despite the conflict, and even sometimes right out of field ovens. Pizza, the humble street food of the poor, became the unexpected comfort food of the American soldier. Even high-ranking officers, including future President Dwight D. Eisenhower, reportedly developed a taste for it. The post-war craving and the oregano boom, when the war finally ended in 1945, these GIs returned home, not just with medals and memories of Europe, but with a new, deeply ingrained culinary craving. They had been introduced to something delicious and unforgettable, and they began to search for it in their hometowns, far away from the traditional Italian enclaves of the East Coast. This returning wave of veterans acted as the ultimate organic marketing campaign. They demanded pizza, forcing local restaurants and entrepreneurs to pay attention. The demand was so immediate and fervent that it caused a national culinary ripple effect. A measurable example of this shift is the oregano boom. Sales of the herb, a staple topping on Italian pizza but previously rare in American kitchens, skyrocketed by over 5,000%. Between 1948 and 1956, America was officially seasoning its new obsession. The dawn of American regionalism, its post-war economic boom, provided the perfect environment for pizza to flourish. Returning soldiers settled down, bought homes in the burgeoning suburbs, and spent their disposable income on leisure and dining. Small, independent pizzerias, often opened by Italian-American families, former GIs, or Greek immigrants who recognized the opportunity, began to proliferate outside of the urban centers. This period, the late 1940s and 1950s, saw the beginning of pizza's Americanization, the critical process where the dish mutated to suit regional tastes rather than clinging strictly to Neapolitan tradition. In Chicago, a very different kind of pie was taking shape. In 1943, just before the main wave of returns, Ike Sewell and Rick Ricardo opened Pizzeria Uno, pioneering the deep dish style. This was a hearty fork and knife creation, built like a casserole with a thick crust, layered with cheese, toppings, and finally, sauce. A truly American adaptation designed to be a full, substantial meal. In Detroit, a unique square pizza baked in rectangular steel pans, originally used as automotive parts trays, was developing a crisp, caramelized cheese crust around the edges, the birth of the Detroit-style pie. These regional innovations signaled that pizza was no longer just an Italian curiosity. It was a flexible canvas for American ingenuity. The technological game changer, the final ingredient for national spread, was technology. A returning veteran named Ira Nevins saw the need for faster, more consistent production. He leveraged his experience repairing ovens to help develop the Baker's Pride gas-fired pizza oven in 1945. These new ovens were a profound technological leap. They were relatively inexpensive, much cleaner, and easier to operate than the old, messy, coal-fired brick ovens, and they provided a predictable, high-heat bake. The Baker's Pride oven allowed any entrepreneur, regardless of ethnic background, to produce a reliable pizza anywhere in the country. Combined with the wider availability of Hobart mixers for dough and the nascent interstate highway system for ingredient distribution, the path was cleared for pizza to travel from the tenements to the diners of every American small town. The stage was set. Pizza had found its champions in the returning heroes of W. Woods, and its commercial success was now an inevitability. It was ready to stop being an ethnic novelty and start being a commodity. By the dawn of the 1960s, pizza had successfully jumped the cultural divide, largely thanks to the returning World War II veterans. It was beloved, but it was not yet ubiquitous. It was still primarily a sit-down affair, found in local, independent shops or regional oddities. The dish was delicious, yet inconsistent. A New York slice tasted nothing like a Chicago deep dish, and a pie in Ohio might be an entirely different creation. The next seismic shift came not from a chef in an ethnic neighborhood, but from a new breed of American entrepreneur who saw pizza not as a culinary art form, but as a repeatable, scalable product. This was the era of the franchise model, and pizza was perfectly positioned to become its greatest success story. The standardized slice, Pizza Hut's nationwide footprint. The story of the pizza chain begins in Wichita, Kansas in 1958. Two brothers, Dan and Frank Carney, borrowed $600 from their mother to open a small pizza restaurant. They named it Pizza Hut, simply because the sign only had room for 8 letters. They were not Italian, they were Midwesterners. This lack of historical baggage was their greatest strength. They didn't aim to replicate Neapolitan tradition. They aimed to create a predictable, family-friendly dining experience. Pizza Hut's rapid success was built on standardization. Every location from Kansas to California offered the same menu, the same red-roofed building, and, most importantly, the same consistent product. They introduced the thick, pan-style crust that was sturdy enough to appeal to the non-purist palate and perfect for mass production. By the late 1960s, Pizza Hut was a national powerhouse, leveraging the new American suburban migration. Their sit-down restaurants became the go-to spot for birthday parties, little league celebrations, and family night out. They effectively turned pizza into a mainstream, middle-class dining event. The delivery revolution, Tom Monahan and the 30-minute guarantee. While Pizza Hut conquered the sit-down suburban market, a visionary named Tom Monahan was redefining the industry with a focus on speed. In 1960, Monahan and his brother James purchased a small Ann Arbor, Michigan shop called Dominic's. Tom eventually took full control, renamed it Domino's, and embarked on a radically simple but world-changing idea: takeout and delivery only. Monahan understood the modern American customer better than anyone. They craved convenience. His business model was built around logistics, not ambiance. He ditched the expansive menus, standardized the size and shape of the box, making it stackable, and focused on a limited ingredient list that could be stocked cheaply and prepared quickly. The true masterstroke of Domino's was the 30 minutes or it's free guarantee. which launched in the 1970s. This bold promise was a marketing sensation that turned a meal into a race against the clock. It forced the company to become a logistical machine, pioneering advanced routing, mapping, and order management techniques, all long before the internet existed. Domino's didn't just sell pizza. They sold speed and reliability. They ensured that pizza was the fastest, easiest dinner option available, bringing it literally to the doorstep of every detached suburban home. Advertising and cultural saturation. The 1970s marked the era when pizza left the cultural shadows and entered the bright light of national television. Pizza Hut and Domino's utilized television advertising to embed their brand and their product into the American psyche. Commercials showed happy, clean-cut American families gathering around a Pizza Hut table or a friendly delivery driver arriving on a snowy night. The cultural message was clear. Pizza was American now. It was no longer the food of immigrants. It was the food of us. This advertising muscle was crucial for overcoming the remaining regional and ethnic barriers that still lingered in parts of the country. The crucial standardization of ingredients, to maintain the quality control necessary for thousands of identical franchises. The chains had to standardize the ingredients themselves. This led to massive industrial contracts for cheese, sauce, and dough. The need for consistent, easily melted cheese led to the dominance of low-moisture mozzarella. The dough recipes were engineered to survive transit and reheating, moving away from wild, spontaneous Neapolitan yeasts toward highly controlled, predictable mixes. The resulting American pie was a unified culinary entity, a mid-range, slightly sweet, generously topped product that was recognizable whether you bought it in Maine or Montana. This standardization was the crucial final step in the chain reaction, paving the way for the incredible volume of consumption, the 100 acres a day, that would define the decades to come. By the end of the 1970s, the battle for convenience and control had been won by the chains. The humble Neapolitan pie had been engineered into a powerful, profitable fast food commodity, ready for the next level of culinary and economic expansion. By the beginning of the 1980s, the national chains had accomplished their mission. Pizza was everywhere. The predictable, standardized Domino's and Pizza Hut pies had conquered the suburbs and the small towns, ensuring the 100 acres a day consumption could be met. Yet this very success created a culinary vacuum. The American palate, having been introduced to the simple perfection of pizza, began to hunger for more variety, more quality, and more identity. The 1980s and 1990s became the era of the Great Pizza Wars, not fought with cutthroat delivery promises, but with regional pride and daring innovation. This period saw pizza split into two powerful streams: the veneration of historic regional styles and the introduction of gourmet, chef-driven pizza. The resilience of regional identity as the chains spread their uniform products. Regional cities clung fiercely to their unique, decades-old traditions, defining them through specific rules and fierce loyalty. These local styles were suddenly elevated from mere neighborhood food to culinary destinations. Chicago deep dish. Already established, deep dish became the standard bearer for the regional movement. It wasn't just a meal. It was a tourist attraction and a civic identity. Spots like Lou Malnati's and Giordano's perfected the layered, high-crusted, buttery pie, daring anyone to compare it to a flat, chain slice. New Haven, a pizza. In Connecticut, the thin-crusted, often slightly charred or burnt, as aficionados call it, a pizza pronounced beats, of Frank Pepe Pizzeria Napoletana, and Sally's A Pizza gained national press. These pies, cooked in hot, coal-fired ovens, often featured clams and eschewed standard mozzarella for grated pecorino romano, offering a sharp, intensely savory alternative to the sweet sauce of the chains. The Neapolitan revival. In the 1990s, dedicated pizzaiolos began pushing back against the Americanized thick crust, seeking to return to the strict standards of the Vera Pizza Napoletana VPN Association. This movement reintroduced wood-fired ovens, true fior di latte mozzarella, and the importance of a chewy, leopard-spotted cornicione rim. This was pizza as our history. The California kitchen pizza goes gourmet. The most transformative development of this era came out of the booming, experimental food culture of California. Before the 1980s, pizza toppings were conservative: pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms, and perhaps green peppers. Everything changed with the rise of new American cuisine and chefs who decided the pizza crust was the perfect canvas for culinary experimentation. Wolfgang Puck is the undisputed icon of this movement. At his famed Los Angeles restaurant Spargo in the early 1980s, Puck famously took the humble pie and treated it with fine dining ingredients. His iconic creation, the smoked salmon and caviar pizza. This wasn't food for a kid's birthday party. It was food for Hollywood stars and food critics. Other gourmet creations followed, featuring duck sausage, goat cheese, sun-dried tomatoes, and exotic mushrooms. Puck's success spawned California Pizza Kitchen, CPK, in 1985. CPK brilliantly translated Puck's high-end concept into a scalable, casual dining chain. They made accessible the concept of the BBQ chicken pizza, the Thai chicken pizza, and countless other globally inspired toppings. CPK proved that Americans were willing to pay a premium for pizza that offered flavor, complexity, and novelty. Pizza as a versatile dining experience, the confluence of the regional revivals and the gourmet movement, achieved a critical goal. It fundamentally redefined pizza's role in the American dining landscape. Before 1980, pizza was either a cheap, quick takeout chain or an ethnic neighborhood sit-down independent. After 1995, pizza was a versatile category that included a multi-course, white tablecloth option gourmet, a unique, fiercely traditional regional experience, deep dish, a pizza, and the standardized comfort of the chains. This versatility was essential. It elevated pizza beyond fast food and made it relevant to every demographic and income level. It allowed a family to order Domino's on a Tuesday, visit a deep dish parlor on vacation, and order a gourmet artisan pie for a Friday date night. The sheer variety amplified consumption, ensuring that the 100 acres a day weren't just composed of pepperoni and cheese, but a vibrant tapestry of regional, traditional, and innovative toppings. The regional wars of the 80s and 90s didn't destroy the chains. They forced the entire pizza ecosystem to raise its quality and expand its imagination, solidifying the dish as the most adaptable and enduring staple in the American diet. The 1980s and 1990s were marked by two competing forces in American pizza: the high-speed delivery wars fought by the chains, and the gourmet experimentation of the regional chefs. Yet, parallel to these highly visible battles, a quieter, more pervasive revolution was taking place in the American kitchen. This revolution was driven by two key technologies: the widespread adoption of the microwave oven and the ever-expanding capacity of the home freezer. This era cemented pizza's status not just as a takeout option, but as the ultimate, indispensable grocery item. The goal was simple: to make pizza available not in 30 minutes, but in 3 minutes. The pioneering power of preservation, frozen pizza, was not a new invention. Concepts had existed as far back as the 1950s, but early attempts were often lackluster: a soggy crust and plasticine cheese that failed to capture the dish's appeal. The key breakthrough came from manufacturers realizing that to succeed, frozen pizza couldn't merely be a copy of restaurant pizza. It had to be optimized for the freezing and reheating process. The 1980s saw massive investment in food science, leading to breakthroughs in dough technology and ingredient stabilization. Companies like Tombstone, initially famous for its thin, cracker-like crust perfect for freezing, and Red Baron perfected the mass production process. The standardization forced by the chains in the 60s provided the blueprint. Now manufacturers applied industrial precision to every component. Dough, engineered to resist freezer burn and achieve a reasonably crisp texture when reheated in a conventional oven, or, more critically, in the microwave. Cheese, developed with specific fat and moisture content to melt evenly without separating or becoming oily. Sauce, pre-cooked and stabilized to prevent excessive water release during thawing. The microwave moment. Pizza, for one, the true inflection point came with the single-serve frozen pizza designed specifically for the microwave. The microwave oven became a fixture in nearly every American household, a symbol of speed and individualism. Pizza manufacturers quickly capitalized on this. The introduction of products like Totino's pizza rolls and small, individual pizzas that included crisping discs or micro-perforated trays. Small pieces of silvery cardboard designed to absorb heat and brown the crust solved the problem of the notoriously soggy microwave crusted. This innovation was revolutionary because it fundamentally changed who was eating pizza and when. No longer was it a meal for a family or a group. It became the ultimate solo snack. It was the perfect after-school meal for kids, the late-night fuel for college students, and the effortless 5-minute lunch for a busy worker. This shift in consumption patterns from shared dinner to individual snack added exponentially to the total volume consumed daily. the rise of the at-home. Bakers Beyond fully prepared frozen pizzas. The at-home economy grew via kits and components. Grocery stores began stocking pre-made dough balls, jars of specialized pizza sauce, and bags of shredded mozzarella sold specifically for homemade pies. This allowed Americans to engage in the pizza experience on their own terms. Consumers could buy the base and then use the fresh, gourmet ingredients inspired by the California kitchen movement to customize their meal. The pizza became the ultimate versatile pantry staple, available either fully prepared for convenience or in component form for customization. Economic and cultural saturation. By the 2000s, the freezer aisle pizza industry had reached massive scale, generating billions of dollars annually and occupying prime real estate in every major supermarket. The success was rooted in two core cultural trends of the time. The time crunch. The late 20th century saw both parents increasingly working, making quick, easy meals an absolute necessity. Frozen pizza was the ultimate solution to the question, what's for dinner right now? Affordability. Despite the gourmet trend, frozen pizza remained incredibly affordable, often costing less than $5 for a family-sized meal. It was, and still is, a democratic food accessible across all income levels. The at-home pizza economy meant that the 100 acres of daily consumption were no longer solely sourced from the delivery driver. They were equally sourced from the millions of home freezers across the nation. The convenience king had permanently moved pizza out of the domain of the restaurant and into the realm of the grocery store commodity. The dish was now fully institutionalized, ensuring its continuous presence in the American diet, ready for the next wave of technological disruption, the internet and hyper-logistics. By the 2010s, pizza was a permanent fixture in the American diet, available via delivery, sit-down restaurant or freezer aisle. Yet, the sheer volume of consumption, the 100 acres of pizza devoured daily, began to place enormous strain on the existing logistical model. To meet this staggering industrialized demand, the pizza industry had to stop thinking of itself as a food business and start operating like a technology company specializing in food. This modern era is defined by the relentless pursuit of efficiency, driven by digital infrastructure, data analytics, and the ubiquitous smartphone. The digital domino effect, data and delivery, the true logistical genius of modern pizza, is centered around the concept of the last mile, and its optimization began not with a new oven, but with algorithms. Domino's Pizza led this transformation, realizing that to maintain their dominance, they needed to conquer the digital ordering space. They famously declared themselves to be a technology company that simply sells pizza. This shift resulted in the Anywhere platform, which allowed customers to order a pizza through every possible device: smartwatches, smart TVs, texts, and even tweets. This wasn't just a marketing gimmick. It was a data-gathering strategy. Every order, its time, its location, its customization, fed into massive data sets that allowed the company to predict demand with unnerving accuracy. This data allowed managers to perfectly calibrate staffing, pre-make dough, and stage drivers, cutting precious seconds off the clock. The classic 30-minute guarantee morphed into a digitally monitored, highly optimized promise, underpinned by advanced software that tracked driver routes and order flow in real time. The rise of the third-party aggregators. The final layer of infrastructure was built by the rise of third-party delivery apps like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub. For independent pizzerias, these apps offered access to a colossal new market, customers who might never have called their phone number. These platforms revolutionized delivery economics, expanded footprint. Suddenly, even high-end traditional pizzerias that had never offered delivery could reach customers far outside their immediate neighborhood, instantly swelling their potential consumption base. Labor outsourcing. Pizzerias could focus purely on production, the cooking, outsourcing the costly and complex logistics of driver management, insurance, and routing to the third-party platforms. Data-driven customization. These apps use algorithms to suggest items, track customer preferences, and even influence pricing, subtly guiding Americans toward ordering more frequently and more expansively. The hidden cost of this convenience, however, is the massive commission fees charged by the aggregators, which have fundamentally reshaped the profit margins of local pizza shops. The modern pizza ecosystem is a complex partnership between cook, customer, and coder. The infrastructure of scale, dough and cheese. To maintain a supply chain capable of producing 100 acres of food every day, the scale of manufacturing required is truly mind-boggling. The ingredients themselves are industrialized to an unparalleled degree. Flour and dough. Specialized pizza flour is milled in enormous quantities, engineered for optimal protein and gluten content. Automated pizza dough production facilities, often operating 24/7, mix, portion, and freeze dough balls by the millions, ensuring every slice from the national chains has the same consistency. Mozzarella mountains. The demand for cheese is the most dramatic economic consequence. Pizza consumption drives the entire US dairy industry. Cheese production facilities, particularly in states like Wisconsin, run on massive scales, creating blocks of low-moisture mozzarella designed exclusively for shredding onto pies. The sheer number of cows required to feed the American pizza addiction is itself a feat of modern agribusiness. The psychology of the perpetual order. Ultimately, the science of the slice comes down to a perfect storm of digital convenience and psychological appeal. Pizza has become the default answer to every modern dining dilemma. The convenience of one-tap ordering removes the friction from the purchase decision. The established comfort food status provides a guaranteed satisfaction. The versatility ensures it always fits the group or the individual meal. In this hyper-connected, speed-obsessed world, pizza is the anti-decision. It requires minimal mental effort, delivers maximum reliability, and its consumption is tracked, measured, and optimized by systems far more complex than the original coal-fired ovens. The 100 acres consumed daily are no accident. They are the result of over a century of culinary evolution, culminating in a state-of-the-art logistical machine. Today's pizza is a triumph of food science. behavioral economics and digital engineering, ensuring that the humble Neapolitan pie remains, and will likely always remain, the unstoppable force of American consumption. We have traced the journey of the pizza from a hard-scrabble Neapolitan street food to a highly engineered, globally distributed commodity that now dominates 100 acres of American consumption daily. Yet all the data points, the logistical marvels, and the billion-dollar franchises fail to explain the most important truth about pizza: its profound, almost spiritual place in the American heart. Pizza is not merely a meal, it is a cultural catalyst, a symbol that transcends class, geography, and even culinary preference. It is perhaps the unofficial flag of American comfort. The unifying power of the pie, what makes pizza uniquely American, is its incredible capacity for unity. Unlike other iconic American foods, the barbecue of the South, the tacos of the Southwest, or the seafood of New England, pizza has no regional boundaries anymore. It is equally revered in a deep dish parlor in Chicago as it is in a coal-fired shop in Connecticut or a delivery zone in suburban Arizona. It is the food most closely associated with collective joy and shared experience. Think of any quintessential American gathering, and pizza is likely present. The big game. Pizza is the automatic pairing for Super Bowl Sunday, March Madness brackets, and World Series parties. It is the fuel for collective tension and celebration. The childhood memory. For generations of Americans, pizza is the official aroma of childhood. It means school parties, post-game celebrations, sleepovers, and the first awkward teenage dates. It's the food that needs no adult urging to be consumed. The crisis. Comfort. When disaster strikes, when moving day is brutal, or when the refrigerator is empty after a long week, pizza is the universal sign of surrender and salvation. It's the easiest way to say, I give up and I deserve comfort. A star on the screen. Pizza in pop culture. No other food is as deeply integrated into American popular culture as pizza. It has been immortalized as a character, a plot device, and a thematic shortcut in cinema and television. The most famous example is the cultural legacy of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, whose obsession with the cheesy pie turned an entire generation of children into aspiring connoisseurs. Pizza became shorthand for youthful rebellion and irreverent fun. From the chaotic office scenes in classic sitcoms to the central role played by delivery drivers in countless teen movies, pizza signifies casual authenticity. It is the food of the everyman. This cultural acceptance allows pizza to bypass the culinary judgment faced by other foods. While a family might debate the merits of gourmet cuisine or healthy eating, no one debates the role of pizza. It is simply accepted, revered, and ordered. The psychology of the perfect package. Pizza hits every psychological marker for comfort, food, perfection, warmth, and gooey texture. The hot, melting mozzarella provides a primal, satisfying tactile experience. The umami bomb. The combination of savory meat, sweet acidic tomato sauce, and fermented dough creates a complex umami flavor profile that registers as deeply rewarding to the brain. Communal structure. The circular pie structure and the pre-cut, triangular slice make it inherently shareable and easy to distribute, minimizing social friction at the dinner table. The delivery box itself, that warm, recognizable cardboard square, has become an instant trigger for contentment. The moment the doorbell rings and the scent of warm yeast and cheese fills the air, the day's stress seems to momentarily melt away. The delivery driver is not just an employee. He or she is a modern-day hero bringing immediate gratification. The final American paradox. The pizza's journey in America is the ultimate immigrant success story. It arrived as a food of necessity and poverty, was discovered by soldiers during a global conflict, industrialized by entrepreneurs, diversified by chefs, and finally integrated into the very fabric of daily American life by technology. It has successfully merged the old-world flavors of humble Neapolitan tradition with the relentless, efficiency-driven engine of American capitalism and innovation. It is an Italian invention that Americans have completely claimed, regionalized, and ultimately perfected for mass consumption. The 100 acres Americans eat every day is not just calories and profit. It is a manifestation of shared identity, a testament to technological scale, and a deep, continuous craving for something simple, familiar, and inherently good. In a fragmented, fast-moving nation, the pizza remains the single, unifying slice of comfort that Americans can always rely on.